What if Capcom made the next Mortal Kombat game? What would it be like? How would the gameplay change, along with the art direction? New special move inputs, the return of sexy costumes, the removal of fatalities. Just for fun, let's discuss what an MK Capcom game would look like. As someone who plays all fighting games, I love thought experiments like this. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm gonna structure this video by mentioning something good, then something bad, and keep repeating that pattern. So first up, let's talk about projectiles. If Capcom made the next Mortal Kombat game, fireballs would trade instead of passing through each other, which I personally like better, because in the current Mortal Kombat, if you throw a fireball and I throw a fireball, then we both get hit, and it comes down to hits done or possibly a knockdown. In other words, we both get hit, but your fireball knocks me down, which gives you the advantage. Or maybe I'm playing Sub-Zero and we both get hit, but you get frozen, which gives me the advantage. Capcom games are way more straightforward. Fireballs almost always cancel each other out, so it's way less character specific. Sure, you have some exceptions, like Juri's fireball being closer to the floor, but typically all projectiles in Street Fighter cancel each other out, unless you spend meter to make your fireball better. And I personally prefer this system because it encourages players to get closer to each other, since their fireballs keep canceling each other out and nobody's really getting anywhere, so might as well get close and throw hands. But also, it's just more straightforward. In Mortal Kombat, some fireballs win, some lose, some knock down, it's all character specific. However, speaking of fireballs, Capcom would likely give Mortal Kombat characters moves that go right through fireballs, since that's common in their other games. So for example, if Sub-Zero spent meter on his slide, it would go right through fireballs. Or for another example, Tanya's drill kick. It would go right through fireballs, but only if you spend a meter, which once again is a change I would personally love. But now it's time to talk about something negative. If Capcom did make the next Mortal Kombat game, there'd likely be no fatalities. Yeah, Capcom would likely remove them completely, or at least reduce their graphic nature quite a bit, because older Capcom games like Darkstalkers did kind of have fatalities, which shows Capcom is not against killing the opponent, but they would definitely tone down the brutality of fatalities quite a lot. I imagine it would be similar to cameo fatalities, or even Mortal Kombat 9 fatalities, much faster and less torturous, which I know some players would definitely despise. However, in my honest opinion, there is a tiny upside to this, because faster fatalities means quicker rematches, and just more matches in general. You spend less time watching the fatalities because they're shorter, and if Capcom did remove fatalities completely, I'd never have to watch my character die over and over. Don't get me wrong, fatalities are fun for the first month, but after that, it's like, come on, just start the next match. I don't want to watch this crap anymore. I've seen the same fatality a dozen times already. Alright, time for something positive. Let's talk about speed, because Capcom fighting games are faster. And I mean that literally. The fastest move in Mortal Kombat 1 is 6 frames, and for every other character, it's 7 frames. Compare that to Street Fighter 6, where the fastest move is 3 frames. Yeah, literally twice as fast, and tons of characters have a 3-frame move. It's not rare. So in other words, Mortal Kombat would become twice as fast if Capcom made it. But also, the animations themselves would get better too. I've never thought NetherRealm games had bad animations, by the way, and to me it did always feel like a lame complaint, because all fighting games have bad animations here and there. However, Capcom fighting games have the least, and in fact, most Street Fighter games are praised for their animation, which means one big positive of Capcom making a Mortal Kombat game would be improved animations and faster gameplay, both of which are a massive plus in my opinion. The game is faster and looks prettier in motion. Alright, time for something negative, at least to some players. Capcom's Mortal Kombat would have way less guest characters, and possibly none at all, which is a change I might prefer in some cases. But I think most players would dislike this, especially since NetherRealm has conditioned players to expect guest characters. Every Mortal Kombat game has more, and Mortal Kombat 1 had like 7 guest characters, or something crazy like that. So compare that to Street Fighter 6, which has 2. Yeah, just 2 guest characters, which I think is a healthy amount, but keep in mind Street Fighter 6 is the exception. Before that, most Capcom games had 0 guest characters, none at all. And that could repeat if they made a Mortal Kombat game, which, like mentioned earlier, would be preferred by some fans and hated by other fans. In fact, if I had to guess, I bet most players would dislike having no guest characters at all. So time for a positive idea. Let's talk about special move inputs. Several attacks in Mortal Kombat are fast and travel quickly, like Sub-Zero's slide. Tons of people online complain about how unreactable this move is, especially especially in Mortal Kombat 11 because it hit low for a cheeky mix-up, which means Capcom would likely turn this move into a charge attack, similar to Bison's scissor kick, because Capcom hates unreactable attacks unless there's a trade-off of some kind, which means Sub-Zero would have to charge back for about 2 seconds before doing his slide, which obviously he could hide by doing other attacks just like in Street Fighter. It sounds like a downside, but keep in mind charge attacks are usually safe on blocks, so while Sub-Zero's slide would be more predictable, he could use it to get in without being punished. And speaking of special moves, command grabs would actually hurt now, because Capcom understands what a grappler is, whereas Mortal Kombat never really has. They give almost everyone a projectile and other universal abilities like that, and then nerf command grabs to compensate, which is not what Capcom does. Just imagine if Reiko's throw did 20% all by itself, and then around 30% if you spent meter. That's closer to what Capcom would do, and honestly, I'm lowballing it, because look how much damage Zangief's throw does in Street Fighter. Yeah, Capcom knows how to make grapplers. Your opponent lives in fear of the command grab constantly, which is what I love. Next up, let's talk about the block button, because if Capcom made Mortal Kombat, this would cease to exist. That's right, no more block button, which would be similar to Injustice games, but Mortal Kombat has a lot of teleports, which could mess with their block system where you walk away to block. If the opponent's constantly going behind you, it flips your block direction, which Capcom does not like for the most part. So I imagine they would slow the teleports down and also make them duckable. And in fact, several characters would lose their teleports, which is why taking away the block button is one change I would personally not prefer. Even though there are upsides to no block button. For example, getting close to the opponent is much easier, and so is retreating, since you can literally block while walking away. However, even so, I feel like the block button is a big part of Mortal Kombat, so it would feel really strange for me to remove it, even if that is more consistent with how Capcom games do it. I don't think there's one Capcom fighting game with a block button. But next up, let's talk about a big positive. Sexy costumes would return in Capcom's Mortal Kombat. That's right, Street Fighter 6 reminded us that Capcom treats their fans well. The classic costumes will always be there regardless of what angry parents might say. And in fact, they recently added hot swimsuits to the game also, which is something Mortal Kombat used to do but stopped around 2016 for very unjustifiable reasons. I won't go into too many details here because I've already made several videos explaining how silly it is to censor Mortal Kombat costumes when tearing everybody apart is completely okay. Killing people and violence good, but too much skin showing bad. That would definitely not happen if Capcom made Mortal Kombat. But speaking of costumes, let's talk about art style, because Capcom has a very different philosophy to Mortal Kombat games. With each new installment of Mortal Kombat, the graphics get more and more realistic. And that's intentional since the first Mortal Kombat game was literally real people with photographs taken. And for a couple sequels, they kept that going. Mortal Kombat 2 and Mortal Kombat 3 used footage of real people, along with Trilogy, and you get the idea. It wasn't until Mortal Kombat 4 that developers started using polygons and moved away from literal actors. And ever since then, developers are still trying to keep that realistic feel. They want the characters to look real because that's the root of Mortal Kombat. And I understand that philosophy, however, part of me has always wanted a Mortal Kombat game with an art style, similar to what Street Fighter and even Tekken games do. Sure, they still look realistic a little bit, but also you immediately know it's not a movie, right? You can tell it's not a real person. It has that fantasy element to it, which is something the 3D era of Mortal Kombat had as well, and I kinda wish developers would return to that. For an easy example on screen, just check out these Street Fighter 6 mods that look like Mortal Kombat characters, but in the Street Fighter 6 engine. To me, this looks really cool, and also it helps the games not to age as fast. Mortal Kombat X used to look realistic until Mortal Kombat 11 came out, and now MKX looks really dated, which is what always happens when you rely on realistic graphics. However, look at Street Fighter 4. This game still looks really cool because it chose an art style over looking realistic, and typically, if done right, art styles never look old. So if the next Mortal Kombat game was made by Capcom, it would have an art style and look very unique compared to previous MK games, and I would absolutely love that. NetherRealm seriously needs to consider an art style for the next game instead of just making Mortal Kombat more realistic each time. But alright everyone, there you have it, all the pros and cons if Capcom made the next Mortal Kombat game. As you can see, there are some upsides if Capcom made a Mortal Kombat, but also some big downsides if they made that game too. do. As mentioned earlier, it's just a thought experiment. I don't want Capcom to own the rights to Mortal Kombat, nor do I want NetherRealm to lose the rights to Mortal Kombat. It's all just good fun to talk about. That's it, just a topic for a video. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Would you enjoy a game like this, at least just once? Do you find the idea of a Capcom Mortal Kombat game appealing? Or do you prefer the NetherRealm style of games, or possibly Midway? Make sure to let me know in the comments because like I say in all my videos, I truly love reading each and every comment. So make sure to grab that keyboard and make your voice heard. Thanks for watching everyone, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like down below, it helps the channel out a ton. And then finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.